All right, everybody, welcome to Celtics Life Live, episode 21-ish. We're somewhere in that area. I'm joined today by three Celtics Life writers. Start out with the head honcho over there, Mark Van Heusen. We have
Hello.
Nolan Connor and Topher Lane making their Celtics Life Live debuts. And, of course, I'm back because they just can't get rid of me quite this easily. All right, so obviously the Celtics sitting at 25 and 21 going into their game tonight at home versus the Nuggets, trying to tie their season high 5 games over 500. Why don't we start off with the newbies? Nolan, just give me a quick little synopsis where this team is. Have they hit your expectations or not? Just what's your vibe on the team right now?
Well, it took a little bit longer, I think, than most expected for guys to figure out their role. But it looks like they're starting to figure that out. You know, Jay Crowder was vocal about that, and you know, now that they're kind of settling in a little bit, you know, even with all the bumps, they're still sitting fifth in the Eastern Conference, just a game behind the Bulls, who they've already beat twice this year. So overall, they're in decent shape. Championship contender, probably not, but as far as my expectations go, I probably have them set a little bit high, but right now they're starting to kind of reach those.
Topher?
I think that we're pretty much where we thought we were going to be coming into the season, sitting in the middle of the playoff picture in the East. Not a contender by any means, but I think that we're sitting comfortably in the middle of the pack, and that we're able to make improvements, especially if we can make a trade sometime in the near future, this season, maybe in the off season, and then we might push into contender status. But for now, we're kind of sitting on the edge, on the brink.
Yeah, I had them at 45 wins to start the year. I had them at 45 wins when they were 18 and 13, when they were 19 and 19, and still now sticking with it, riding with it. That'd be a 5-win increase while playing in a much improved conference. They're a better team than last year. They're better positioned for the future than they were last year, adding Isaiah Thomas and Jay Crowder, two really sneaky good trades. If I were to say my disappointment with the team, it's not where they are, and this is something I will talk about. It's that there's been a lot of first-round picks in the last 2 years that are chilling on the end of the bench, and I don't even see a light at the end of the tunnel for them. So a little bit disappointed in terms of the development of the recent first-round picks, but besides that, exactly where I expected. I also expected the Nets to be one of the 3 worst teams in the league, and they were right in that 3rd spot. Don't love their chances to climb higher, but I do like their chances to stay there. So I'm feeling good, not great, but exactly where I thought they'd be, actually. Mark, what about you?
Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head right there, kind of with my thoughts. This season's kind of like a freebie. Like, we got the Nets pick coming. It's going to be good. Hope they're going to make the playoffs probably, but they're not that great, but that doesn't really matter. It's sort of like we can tank without actually tanking.
Right.
And it's like you can't lose with this year, so I'm perfectly content with the way things are going right now. And they got a good schedule coming up in the immediate future, so it could get exciting in the next couple weeks.
It definitely could. Last time I was pumped about the schedule, right? They had the Lakers at home. They had the
yeah.
at home.
that was
And the
tough.
Pistons at home. And they went 1-6. And it was like, okay, maybe this team isn't that good. But then they bounced back against tougher teams. So, yeah, hopefully they go Nuggets, Magic. It's not a very tough schedule coming up. So maybe they can get closer to 10 games over 500, move into a home court advantage spot. I don't think anyone's disenchanted. I don't think anyone thinks this team can compete with Cleveland. I think Toronto's clearly better than them. After that, the East is kind of like up in the air. I'd probably take Atlanta over the Celtics. I don't think I'd take the Bulls. I think they might be the 4th best team in the East. If they finish 7th, it wouldn't surprise me either. So getting into that, what's this team's ceiling? I'll go first this time. Their absolute ceiling, to me, unless someone gets hurt, I cannot see them beating Cleveland or Toronto. So I do think the second round of the playoffs, I think there was some kind of way I kind of talked to myself, maybe they can get to the Eastern Conference Finals if everything broke right. I just don't see them beating Toronto, even if they climb to the 3 seed. I think that team is just better than the Celtics by a little bit at everything. So I think second round of the playoffs and falling while winning a couple games versus either Toronto or Cleveland, that's where I have my realistic ceiling, short of several key players in the conference go down and suddenly the Celtics are the ones getting their asses kicked in the finals by the Warriors. But I just don't think that's realistic. Mark, back to you. What do you think? Ceiling?
Pretty much the same thing, except like right now Toronto is way better, but I don't really understand why. Nothing about Toronto's roster really scares me. I mean,
They're just
DeRozan,
they're a year further along.
Yeah,
and they do
maybe
have a
that's
closer.
it. Maybe that's it. Yeah, because DeRozan was amazing when they played him last week, and he went nuts and he was hitting big shots. And we don't really have anybody that does that, but I don't know. I feel like things just haven't been going well for them right now, but a little change here or there, and it might not continue. I mean, they're only, I think, 2 games back of the Cavs right now, which is kind of amazing. They're closer to the number 1 seed than they are to anybody after that. But you're right. Nobody else, with the exception of Cleveland, and I'm not even sold on Toronto, nobody else really scares me at all. I mean, I'd say Atlanta's probably better. Chicago, I'm not even really sure.
Yeah.
I'd say 3, like you said, is the likely ceiling, but even 2 is possible, but more likely right where they are now. Probably 4 or 5, I think, is pretty likely.
Topher?
See, I see the Cavs collapsing before the Raptors. I could see the Raptors possibly take number 1, and the Cavs fall off, especially with the coaching changes and all the stuff that might happen with trades and stuff. With that being said, I think 2 is the ceiling for the Celtics. I don't think they could reach it. I think 3 is kind of a pipe dream, and then 4 is where I think we'll realistically land. Second round playoffs, I feel, is pretty likely. Getting through, whether the Bulls or, I don't know. I think that's a realistic win in the first round, but I think second round is as far as we can go.
I can't see Cleveland collapsing. They have LeBron. He's gonna win enough games. He's gonna win the East. Like, LeBron is just like the Eastern Conference boogeyman. He's gonna go to the finals like 10 straight years, or like at least 7 or 8. And again, maybe maybe those 7th and 8th years aren't quite guarantees because you don't know. But what's gonna happen with that team? He went to the finals last year with nobody, and now this year he's not. He's going to find a way to muscle his way to the finals and then, again, fall short. And I would be surprised by a collapse. I know they lost their first game under Lou, and then they barely beat the Timberwolves. It's just, I've seen this story before. LeBron is going to find a way to win 57 games and go to the finals because he's LeBron, and he owns a conference. It's like the Western Conference and the LeBron Conference. What about you, Nolan? What's your ceiling for this team?
I mean, it's pretty much in the same ballpark as you guys. But if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said, Eastern Conference Final is the definite ceiling. But that Toronto game was really a little depressing there. But again, we had no answer for Valanciunas, and really DeRozan took over. But how much of that is an anomaly? I mean, I know he always goes off when he plays the Celtics, and I know he's an all-star. But, I mean, is he going to do that every night? So I'm not sure how far ahead Toronto is of us, but they're definitely ahead of us right now.
Yeah, quickly on Toronto, I think if you look at a few of the Celtics' weaknesses, right, they have no one who can really close games. Isaiah Thomas just isn't quite big enough. He's great in so much of the game, but when it gets really tight, well, DeRozan is that guy. And then the Celtics, they get great ball movement and get these good looks at threes, but even with their recent hot streak, they're 24th in the league in shooting threes. Toronto can actually knock down some shots. So I think, is Toronto worlds ahead of the Celtics? No, but they're better at the things the Celtics aren't quite as good at. So I give them a significant edge. Not that it's insurmountable over the next season even. The Celtics make a move or two. This year would be very surprising, especially because Toronto's 5.5 up. They'll have home court. I like Toronto over the Celtics this year. I want to get into something. Today I was listening to Felger and Maz on my way home.
That's not
I know.
good.
No, I want to respond to some of the stuff they were talking about because they seem to think, and it wasn't so much Felger, that the Celtics, people should be losing some patience in the Celtics. The Celtics might be slipping into basketball purgatory, which everyone knows is when you make the playoffs every year, but you never get a high pick, and you don't really advance as a team. I think the Atlanta Hawks of, say, 08 to 12 were a good example of that, where I think they made the playoffs all 5 years. They made the second round maybe once. They never made the conference finals. They never won more than 50 games. They never had a high draft pick. That does suck. My response to that would be that the Celtics already have a team tanking for them. For at least this year. They have a legitimate shot at picking first and a great shot at picking top 5 without having to tank. So I think it's kind of bogus. In terms of patience, I will lose patience when they flatline. This is year 3 of the rebuild and the 3rd straight year that they've gotten, in my mind, significantly better. 25 wins to 40 wins to mid to upper 40s in a much improved conference. So I haven't lost patience. I do get some frustration with all the trade rumors, even though not a lot of them are legitimate, that never seem to come to fruition. So I can understand some frustration there, but I haven't lost patience yet. I'm very excited about the chance to finish, say, 4th in the East and then add a top 3 player in the draft. Nolan, what do you think? Should there be any loss of patience? Do you think they could be someday? I will admit, though, there is some danger in their current plan of falling into purgatory, but I'm not scared of that yet. I haven't seen any signs it's going to happen, but I do admit the black hole is there. I just don't see the Celtics falling into it. I'm not afraid of it right now. Nolan.
Yeah, it's tough. In Boston, we're a little spoiled with all our teams.
Absolutely.
Win or nothing. I could see this team being a 3rd or 4th place team in the Eastern Conference, for the next few years. But really, the way to rebuild and teams like the Golden State Warriors, they built from what they already had. Nobody had Klay Thompson as a superstar coming out of the draft. Draymond Green. Those guys, we need to improve the players that we have right now. Guys like Marcus Smart, even Isaiah Thomas, he can improve. I think there's still room to improve for him. Bradley, all these guys. So, while getting a superstar coming to us in the offseason would be nice, or landing Ben Simmons and have him end up being all-world like they're predicting him to be, I don't think that's going to guarantee that we're a championship team. So see what we can build on from what we have.
Topher, what do you think?
I see us as we move towards, especially with the cap rising and all this stuff that's kind of swirling around the basketball world, I could see us moving into contender before we fall out and fall into that black hole. With the way that everything goes, with the Nets picks that we have, with the Nets pick this year especially, I don't see that we could fall back that far where we really get condemned to late playoffs for the next X amount of years. I just don't think that's realistic right now.
What are you, Mark?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of that Felger-Maz thing that you were talking about, and the fact that they mentioned tanking without even mentioning that we have the Brooklyn pick was just absurd,
Weird.
And that got me so annoyed.
Well,
but yeah, go ahead.
No. Well, the only thing I was gonna say is there was this talk where the Celtics, why if they could have been worse last year, they could have got Porzingis. Porzingis was the guy they kept going back to. The Celtics won 19 or 21 more games than the Knicks last year. That's not just a simple thing that you're if we lost a little more down the stretch. Now, if you want to talk Justice Winslow, because I think they finished 4 or 5 games over the Heat, if you're a huge Justice Winslow guy, which obviously Danny Ainge was, then maybe that's someone you talk about. But picking 3rd or 4th or 2nd was not realistic last year unless you're hey, I didn't want them to get Isaiah Thomas. I didn't want them to get Jay Crowder. I didn't want them to play their young guys who were playing well. So a lot of last year, it wasn't like they brought in a lot of vets. They have an under 27-year-old core that happened to play well under a good coach. So get rid of Brad Stevens if you want to do that, and don't make any trades. A great bargain trade for Isaiah Thomas. So that was ridiculous. But Mark, continue.
The only way they were going to be in the lottery last year was if they tried to be the Sixers, and nobody wants to be the Sixers. They've been the Sixers forever. That's not working. But the part about being frustrated is what really gets me. Topher, I can't remember if it was Topher or Nolan. Sorry, guys. One of you said we're spoiled here, and we completely are. If you look at it, there's 30 teams in the NBA, so you should have a finalist on average once every 15 years, conference finalist once every 7 or 8 years. So that, I think, is the minimum. It takes a while to get good, and not every team can be good. And until there's some sort of, you keep mentioning, flatline, it's crazy to be impatient already. There's an obvious direction they're going in. Until Ainge starts doing the thing where he keeps flipping the assets for future assets like the Sixers keep doing and they keep staying down there. But I guess I'd wait till this summer and see what plays out. If they look like the same team next year that they do right now, then I think it's reasonable to start getting a little frustrated.
Absolutely, and I think that's what we mean by flatline. If they win 45 games this year, let some of their free agents walk, bring in a guy, say 4th overall, who's a project, maybe the center from Utah, Podol, right? We don't expect a lot out of him this year. You can't make anything happen in free agency. Can't make anything happen with trades. And you're looking at the 6th or 7th seed again. I have no issue at that point when you see a noticeable flat line being okay, it's year 4. But 3 years ago, when they finished that 2013 season, they were the 3rd oldest team in basketball. They had no first-round picks outside of their own. Now they're 7th or 8th youngest team in basketball. They picked up 5 or 6 additional first-round picks. You got to give it some time. I would love it if they were to go and make a trade for DeMarcus Cousins, which, by the way, the fact that no one on that show wants DeMarcus Cousins is insane. Just flat out insane.
Especially because he's put up 120 points in his last 2 games.
Yeah, but what about the whole season, though? He's averaging 27, 12, and 4. He's one of the top 6 or 7 players in basketball. Granted, this has been one of my things for a long time. I don't think he's available. I don't think they have the pieces to get him unless they land the number 1 pick and he becomes available. So I think it's kind of a waste of.
They're in the playoffs. He's not available. Actually, they're not because Portland beat him last night, but they're right on the edge and they want to win and they're doing okay. He's not available.
He's not available at all. But the fact that people think that if he was, the Celtics shouldn't be interested in giving up some of their picks for him is bananas, like flat out bananas. Well, we're talking about Cousins a little bit. We know he's not available. At least most people do, who actually follow basketball. But there is at least a shot Kevin Love's available. And I actually do believe he will be made available if the Cavs get steamrolled in the finals or worse this year, which I think is very likely because it's very hard for me to imagine them winning the finals this year, short of LeBron doing what he did last year plus Love and Irving falling in line. And I just don't see that happening. So let's say Kevin Love's made available in the next 3-4 weeks. Things are even worse than we've heard in Cleveland. I know Zach Lowe brought up the possibility, not saying he didn't say he heard this was going to happen, but the possibility of the Celtics being a fit with Jay Crowder and multiple first-round picks, and then you'd have to throw in some. I think they also had Sullinger in the deal. With David Lee might have been canceling out some salary. There was some other pieces there, but the biggest thing being Jay Crowder and a few picks. For the sake of the argument, let's say it's not the Nets pick this year, right? Let's say it's the Celtics pick this year and maybe the Nets pick in 2018. I don't know. That just seems like kind of what would be a reasonable 2 picks there. Celtics fans have fallen in love with Jay Crowder for good reason, but obviously we know his ceiling is not anywhere near the guy we saw out of Kevin Love, what Kevin Love was in Minnesota. Would you be interested in trading Jay Crowder, let's say Jared Sullinger, and 2 first-round picks, not including the Nets pick this year, for Kevin Love? Mark, what do you say?
Oh, man, I'm torn.
It's tough.
Yeah. And it's crazy to think, like, Jay Crowder's not better than Kevin Love. He's never going to be better than Kevin Love. But Minnesota was terrible with Kevin Love. Cleveland isn't better with it. If he was that good, he should be having more of an impact. They should find a way to make him work other than just have him stand in the corner and hit open threes. And he's getting rebounds, and that would be a big upgrade for the Celtics. But then on the other hand, it's definitely a move that would make them better. There's no way to argue against that. And shouldn't you always do everything that could make you better? I mean, is it stupid to pass up possibly that? To think, well, it's probably not going to win us a title, but maybe if we get some other superstar instead, that might win us a title. I think at this point, if you get a shot at like a top 15, 20 guy, you probably have to take it no matter who it is, just because those kinds of things don't come around that often. Like Kevin Garnett is a reasonable comparison to Kevin Love. I mean, Garnett's obviously way better, but if you look at the situation with him in Minnesota, then he happened to come to the Celtics and it worked out great. That could happen with Kevin Love too. And, I mean, Jay Crowder's a piece, but he's never going to be the guy. So I guess I would say yes, but it's closer than it should be.
I think it is close. Nolan, what do you think?
I mean, it's tough, but I don't think I would do it. I didn't read Zach Lowe's piece, but I don't really see where Jay Crowder fits in on the Cavs.
Well, his point was, I'll just answer that quick because it was a podcast, and he said Jay Crowder would allow them to take LeBron off the best wing on the other team and kind of let LeBron run free. They could play more small ball with it, which is a huge issue with them. They can't really go small right now. And with him and LeBron playing 3-4, that would give him the option. So I do think he does fit, but that was kind of what he was saying there.
All right. I mean, I'm not huge on Kevin Love. You know, kind of like Mark pointed at, if he can't help this Cavs team with Kyrie and LeBron, how's he going to help, Sullinger and Thomas or our guys? I can see where we get better, but is he that guy? Like, he was that guy in Minnesota, and they were cellar dweller team. So I don't know.
But
I'm not
DeMarcus Cousins has always lost until maybe making an 8 seed this year in the weakest we've seen in the Western Conference in 15 years, at least the bottom part, right? I mean, people lose sometimes. Like,
It's true, but I don't know. I just think talent-wise, DeMarcus Cousins is that kind of that impact player.
I do agree with that.
Kevin Love, it seems like I don't know. I haven't really seen him in that big moment step up. Neither have I seen Cousins either, so it's a tough argument. But I don't know. I don't think I would pull the trigger on Jay Crowder per se, but there are other guys on the team that I would send away.
Subbing Crowder for Avery Bradley, do you do it?
Absolutely. And pretty much anybody but Crowder and Smart.
Interesting. Topher, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say that exact same thing. Like, I'd be open to a deal if they excluded Crowder and Smart. I think that they, especially with Crowder's contract, that the bargain that it's going to be, and that it really is right now for his defense and just his contributions as he's kind of escalating as a player, I don't know if I'd want to give Crowder up. And I think Marcus Smart has a higher ceiling than Crowder. He just hasn't quite reached that yet. So, I mean, I would love to have Kevin Love on the Celtics, but I would rather not give up Crowder for it. And I think he would fit really well, especially with Isaiah running at the point. I think that they would stretch the floor really well, and that's something that Stevens has wanted to do, especially during the preseason. He was playing around with Amir Johnson, trying to stretch the floor a little bit and trying to get all that stuff happening. I think that's what he wants to do, and Kevin Love would fit that scheme really well. And so I think in Brad Stevens' offense, it would be a great addition, but I'm not sure what we'd want to give up for him.
So here's my thing. If Kevin Love gets traded to the Celtics, he's going to be a lot closer to the Minnesota Kevin Love than the Cleveland Kevin Love. Yeah. Because, number one, because his role would be much closer to what it was in Minnesota, except with more help and in a weaker conference, which I don't think there's very few players who I look as like these playoff boogeymen. Like, Kevin Love can't make the playoffs averaging 25 and 12. No, I think he can. I think he was so like people think like if the T-Wolves drafted Steph Curry over Johnny Flynn, like Kevin Love wouldn't have made it work. I think he would have probably been in the playoffs. They really sucked. Like their GM was terrible. He's one of the worst in league history in David Kahn. And then he goes to Cleveland, and he has been on the number 2 seed last year, made the finals. And I know he did get hurt, which wasn't his fault, and now he's the number 1 seed. So I think we've seen you can win with him, right? Averaging his 16 and 11, and then he was averaging 25 and 12 on a bad team. I think he comes to Boston. He's much closer to the Minnesota guy, even if those stats don't completely level up. And the other thing is, how many guys have come to Boston and not gotten the most out of their talent under Brad Stevens? Right? Like Isaiah Thomas is a better version of himself. Jay Crowder is a much better version of himself. Avery Bradley's gotten better as a player. Kelly Olynyk's gotten better as a player. Maybe Jared Sullinger's flatlined. Okay, so you can put that one in there. But guys just get better under Stevens.
You could say that, you could say that exponentially for big men too. Remember Chris Humphries in Stevens' first year. He played. His stats were unreal. Zeller last year.
Right.
And Sullinger.
Jordan Crawford, Player of the Week.
Yeah.
Evan Turner, triple doubles.
Boom.
Yeah,
okay, so I love this. You guys are kind of making my point with all these names because I feel like the Celtics are the number 2 defensive team in the NBA. Kevin Love for Crowder is not going to make them a bad defensive team. It's going to make them a worse defensive team. There's no doubt, right? You sub out a great defender for I think at best a slightly below average one. Going to make a difference. But Stevens will get him whatever his ceiling is defensively. Stevens will get there. And Love fixes 2 massive flaws with this team. Crunch time scorer, yes, he can do that. He did that in Minnesota. He can score in a bunch of different ways. So he does that, and you don't even lose your number 2 scorer in Isaiah. What would become your number 2 scorer in Isaiah Thomas? The other thing is 3-point shooting. They suck at 3-point shooting. Crowder's been solid from there, 34, 35%. But Love is a guy who's a knockdown shooter. So they get better in that way. So I would do it because all of a sudden you're building around Kevin Love, Isaiah Thomas, Marcus Smart, Avery Bradley, the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pick, and role players with additional first-round picks. You'd still have, say, the Dallas pick this year, the Nets pick next year, the Celtics pick. You just still have all these picks. And also another thing, all of a sudden a team's looking at, they have Kevin Love, Isaiah Thomas. I like Marcus Smart as a player. Oh, they're picking 2nd overall. Then you're really talking about potentially luring in a free agent. Right now you can't quite get a tier 1 free agent.
That's a great point. Who's coming to the Celtics and like, I want to play with Jay Crowder. I'm going there. I don't think that's happening, but a superstar, it might be. Yeah.
And I think it might help them actually make the Eastern Conference Finals this year. Maybe you even go head-to-head in Cleveland, and you're one of the talks of the NBA for a little bit. So I pull the trigger because you got to give up something to get something. I do really like Jay Crowder. But I do think it's close. And, yeah, if I could summon Avery Bradley, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Would Cleveland be interested in, at least for part of it, Amir Johnson? I'll take back Varejao. I'll take back the corpse of Verejao's contract if somehow it would work out. So we're talking about trades a little bit. Play a little game with the Celtics. First, actually, does anyone think they have a shot at getting Blake Griffin? I think it's the stupidest story in the world. Blake Griffin's not getting traded, right? Quickly, Topher.
I don't think that he is. I mean, there's a lot of people thinking it right now with all the news coming out about him punching an equipment manager or something, and people are thinking about it, but I don't think that the Clippers realistically deal him.
Yeah, it's nice in the moment, but in 6 weeks his hand's going to be healed. He's going to be averaging 23, 9, and 5 as a 26-year-old under contract for 3 more years. It's like
he's too big a part of the Clippers' actual core to deal with him. And I don't think Doc would want to get rid of him.
Agreed. Nolan, what do you think? Any shot?
Probably not.
No. So I like it. Short but sweet. I agree. Mark?
Maybe, but he's not coming to Boston. Like, first, Doc would never risk that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And second, like, they would ask for the Brooklyn pick, Smart, and something else, and we'd be like, no thanks. And
Crowder. It would be like Crowder, Smart, Brooklyn pick, and like another first-round pick.
Yeah.
That's how you put together like a realistic package for the 26-year-old who finished 3rd in the MVP 2 years ago. Okay, play a little game. Trade, let walk in free agency, or re-up with the Celtics' upcoming free agents. Let's start with the easy one. Does anyone not think you let David Lee walk or trade him by the deadline? Okay, I'm taking that. We'll
Moving on.
Cross David Lee right off. Let's go to the other unrestricted free agent, Evan Turner. Here's a hot button one. I'll go first this time. Evan Turner's better than I thought. I was wrong on Evan Turner. He has major weaknesses. When he shoots threes, I want to kill myself. He turns the ball over too much. But he can get his own shot, which really only a few guys on this roster can. He can move the ball. He's a good facilitator. He's a better player than I thought. My whole thing is he's going to get a raise from his $3.5 million up to, what, 5, 6, 7 million in the new landscape. I don't even know where he's going to land, but it's going to be more than he's making now. And I just don't see, if you re-sign Evan Turner, and you already have Isaiah Thomas, and you already have Avery Bradley, and you already have Marcus Smart, and you already have Jay Crowder, if you want to say Turner plays some 3. Are you ever going to play these young guys? Like, they got to play eventually. We got to see who, R.J. Hunter, what he is, or what James Young is. Terry Rozier. Like, so I just don't see how keeping him is realistic, which to me means it comes down to letting him walk or trading him. And I would be open, even if it takes the Celtics this far back, to trading Evan Turner if you can get something for him and subbing in R.J. Hunter into that role, or like you're letting those young guys fight for some minutes. So I am a team, don't re-sign Evan Turner unless you're blowing up the roster in another way I can't figure out. Let's go out to you, Nolan. Evan Turner, where do you land with him?
Yeah, you make a good point with R.J. Hunter, trying to insert him into the lineup, get him some more minutes. I'm just not sure what the market's going to be for Turner either. I mean, probably isn't a coach in the league who likes Turner more than Brad Stevens does.
But don't you think his reputation's better now than it was 2 years ago when Philly traded him?
Sure, yes and no, because his three-point shooting has been god-awful.
He's awful.
And that's kind of where the league is heading in that direction. You need your perimeter guys to be able to nail the 3-ball. I think that's going to hurt him come off season. If we can get him for a similar contract that we have now, maybe like another $1 million, I don't really see too much hurt other than what you had mentioned with R.J. Hunter.
All right, so you're even down to re-sign him. Mark, what do you say about Evan Turner's future?
I wish I could go back and look at all the tweets I've seen this year of Stevens talking about like what a great guy he is and how much he loves his character. Also, when they need a bucket in crunch time, I think he's the guy I want to drive to the hoop more than Isaiah even. And it's pretty close.
Well, he can get his shot off over.
He can get it, yeah.
Isaiah Thomas can't.
Right, that's exactly it. And if they were down 1 and they want somebody driving the hole, I'd rather it was Turner than Thomas. But having said that, I also think you do everything you can to try to trade him if you can get any value for him whatsoever. And then when summer comes, I'd be completely open to re-signing him, but he's not a priority. Like you see what else happens. Maybe you make some big deal and shakes up things, and you lose a lot of the young guys, and then you absolutely want to keep him because you need to fill that role. Maybe you sign some other guys, and then you have some money left, and he wants to stick around, so then you go for it. I'm not opposed to it, but I don't care really if they do or not.
Topher?
I mean, I would like to see them create something at the deadline or sometime before the deadline with Evan Turner. I think he could be valuable to some teams. I think, I'm trying to think of who you'd fit best with, but I could see them trying to make a deal that would get Evan Turner out of Boston. Otherwise, I would be fine with him being signed by Boston for maybe a little bit more, but not much. If negotiations go really well and he really wants to stay in Boston, he's willing to take a pay cut, I'd be fine with that. But otherwise, I'd let him walk.
All right, so that was a close one, and that might be one of the closer ones. Here's another one I feel like they could be a little bit torn on, and that's Jared Sullinger. So restricted free agent. Celtics can match any contract he gets. Currently putting up around, 9.5 points and 8.5 boards. 13 rebounds per 36 minutes. Shooting percentage way down. 42% from the field. 3 points. Percentage still sucks, but he's taking less, which I think is a positive. Been healthy this year, basically. Haven't had any issues with him. Cool haircut. And I think he has a skill set that no one else on the roster has. So what do we think? And if you want to re-sign him, give me a contract estimation on Sully this summer. Mark, out to you. What do you do with Sully?
I'm looking at the email you sent us earlier today about the topic, and I'm looking over the list of all the guys we're going through right here. So we just did Lee. He's gone. Then we got Turner, Sully, Zeller, Jerebko Johnson, and I think everything I just said about Evan Turner, I want to apply to every single one of them. I like them all. I like having all of them on the team. They'd be okay without any of them. And it all depends on what else happens going into next year. What other big moves happen? What trades happen? How much money is available? I guess I would put Sullinger slightly higher on my priority list over Turner, but he's going to get even more money. And who knows? The salary cap's about to explode. I mean, he might be like a $12 million a year guy, and that's probably too much. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of variables between now and then, and
for sure,
if they can fit him in, great. If not, oh well.
Nolan, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm right around the same range there with Mark, about $12 million. I don't think the Celtics should do that. I don't think they will. I think that all his advanced stats and rebound percentage, that's other teams are looking at that, and I think there is going to be a team that pulls the trigger and signs him to a big deal. That I don't think the Celtics. I think Sullinger would give them the opportunity to match it, even though he's unrestricted. But I just don't see them spending that much money on him, and the injury risks, and I think he's getting close to his ceiling this season.
All right, what do you think, Topher? Is he at his ceiling? How much would you pay him? Would you dump him for sure?
I would pay him probably 11 max. I don't think that it's realistic for that to actually, with the cap going up, I don't think that's what we could afford. I don't think he'll sign for that. I think he'll find a better deal elsewhere. And also, I would be fine letting him walk because of the depth that we have at the power forward and center position. I agree, the rookies should get time to play, and I am a huge fan of Jordan Mickey. And if we can eliminate one more spot, especially in a guy that we're not completely sure about, we debate so often about Jared Sullinger's consistency and how well he's playing, especially in crunch time. And I'd rather see Jordan Mickey on the floor in those situations than Jared Sullinger.
Right. I wouldn't re-sign Jared Sullinger to an 8-figure-a-year deal. Just wouldn't do it. What he's doing this year in a contract year, 9 and 8, right? In limited minutes, I know. The rebounding is fantastic. He's solid defensively. He's a solid player, but there's just no way. As much as the cap's exploding, everyone's going to get more expensive. So it's not like you can fit more good players in. And I just feel like, looking at their salary cap space, Jared Sullinger, if you plug him in for 12, you're down to about $37 million in cap space, and that's if you let Amir Johnson walk. And then going forward after that, you're going to be re-signing other guys, right? Or you're going to be letting them walk, and you're going to have to fill with other talent. And you're going to be drafting these guys high and giving them big contracts. It's just, I'm not comfortable giving Jared Sullinger anything close to $12 million. I would work to trade him because I do think they have enough bigs I'm more favorable with Kelly Olynyk than Jared Sullinger. I think what he's done this year has been really, really impressive. And I'm also a guy who would like to see Jordan Mickey get some action. So I would deal Sullinger if the price is right, and I think he could help a lot of contenders because he's a good player. I'm not down to give this guy 4 years, $48 million. That's crazy to me. I think we're all probably lukewarm on Zeller and Jerebko, right? There's no one with super strong feelings. So the other guy,
yeah, I mean, I think Jerebko, I think they wanted a lot more from him, and he just doesn't fit in the scheme. I think he's gotten a lot less minutes than Ainge and Stevens had intended when they signed him again. Otherwise, I think they would have let him go because he just hasn't been the impact player that I think they wanted off the bench. And I don't think that's because of his lack of ability. I think it's just his lack of playing time. We haven't been comfortable plugging him in those situations. So, yeah, I think we're all on the same page with that we're lukewarm about it.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to see all the other big men get hurt just for a game or two and see what happens when Jerebko gets 40 minutes because I love watching him and he's fun to root for. And I don't know, like you said, Topher, I think maybe with opportunity, but I don't know if he's good enough to really earn that opportunity. So, yeah.
Yeah, my whole thing is with these like rotation guys, if you're the Celtics and your whole thing right now is building depth, well, there's going to be some casualties to that. And rather the casualties be 29-year-old Jonas Jerebko than 21-year-old R.J. Hunter, or 21-year-old Jordan Mickey. So I'm completely fine with thinning the herd a little bit with guys like Zeller, Jerebko, and even Sullinger, although I'm not completely opposed to keeping him around if the price is right. I guess the one other guy is, what would you like to see them? Is Amir Johnson a $12 million a year guy? Would you just let him walk? Would you bring him back for a lesser per year salary? I would love to see them re-sign him to like 3 years at $9 million per. Then you get him longer for a little less per year. I like his skill set. He's a huge plus-minus guy always. It just $12 million, and then you might lose him the next year. I'm not loving that option this summer. What do you think, Nolan?
Yeah, I mean, he seems like a great locker room guy. He works hard. I think he's a good guy to have just on his hustle alone. He kind of blends in with kind of the direction this team is trying to go with Smart and Crowder and those type of guys. 12 mil does seem kind of steep, but with the salary jump next season, it may not be that bad. I think it could be worth just keeping him, depending on what becomes available, in the off season as far as centers come and go. If there's anything else available, a younger improvement, sure, let's pull the trigger and let Amir go. But if not, it may just be worth it to hang on to him.
Topher?
The two guys that I've been really pleased with in the 4 and 5 position have been Kelly Olynyk and Amir Johnson. And Amir Johnson less so, but I think that he fits the mold of what the team wants in a 4 or 5 guy. And he's not there. I think that they want him to be a little bit better offensively. I think he's a really good big hustle guy and a locker room presence that the team likes. But I don't think that they're going to want to sign him long term. I would like to see 3 years for under $10 million, but I just don't know if the team would be willing to do that.
Mark, what about you?
I was excited when they signed Johnson in the first place, and now I wonder if they never had and played this whole season without him, would it make any difference? Maybe a game or two, but I'm not even sure. They might have won some other games and lost some other games. It might make absolutely no difference. But like you said, Mike, he's on a team option for next year, $12 million. Who knows, again, with the cap, maybe that's a bargain still. But now I'm thinking they should stop playing and hurt his value and then re-sign him for a longer-term contract for less money. They're in complete control of that. And there's other guys. They could play him 10 minutes, 15, maybe 20 a game, which they're almost kind of doing. He plays well when he's out there, but keep his free agent value down low and try to renegotiate. I definitely don't think they should pick up the 1 year 12 the way things are going right now, though.
He's just a solid role player. He does a lot of little things well, and that was always his thing. I think that's kind of carried through. I mean, there's a reason why they're better with him on the floor. There's a reason his offensive rating's so good, his defensive rating's good. So he's just one of those intangible guys, and I feel like he's going to be on the roster next year. I really do. Unless something big happens, I just feel like they're gonna keep him on the roster. And I like that idea. I would like it to be a little bit lower price. One other thing I wanted to ask you guys, and this is taking a lot of projection, but with the current path of getting a little better every year, realistically, let me put it this way. When's the first year if the Celtics aren't at least a borderline title contender? They don't need to be the favorite, right? But a borderline title contender. When will you consider this run or this strategy a failure? Like, is there a point where you're like, if they keep getting better, but there's always going to be that point in your mind where you think, okay, this run didn't work, it's time to try something else. When do you guys project that date to be? Let's go back to Mark.
I think you got 2 years of sort of in the middle after this one before you give up and say it's a failure. I think realistically there's no way they're not contending for the title next year unless like a Garnett type of deal comes around, and even then they still have to be LeBron and then Curry in the finals probably, so I don't think that's happening. Maybe the year after that. I mean, 2 years from now, I could see, like you said earlier, Mike, LeBron owns the Eastern Conference on his own right now. But 2 years from now, I don't know if that's the case anymore. So I think that's probably the most realistic time that they'll be a contender again.
Topher.
I would say minimum 2 years for sure, and that's a stretch. Realistically, I would say 4 until they might be like in the conversation for contending. And actually winning a title, I don't know. It's too hard to say with how the Warriors, like the talks about them possibly getting Kevin Durant is terrifying for like any team trying to win a title. So like it's there's a lot that could happen, but at least until we're in the conversation, I would say probably 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I would like to see them be in contention for the Eastern Conference Championship 2 years from now. I really would. That would be 2017-18 season. If Golden State's still winning 74 games a year at that point, well, maybe they're not a championship contender. But to me, if you're in the finals, you're a contender. Except for the Cavs last year, that was a contending team. Like, I know they lost, but that was a championship contending team. And if they're at that point in 2 years, I'd be very pleased. And I don't think it's insane, but they definitely need. There's 1 or 2 major moves that need to happen while the development of other players continues. One other question I just kind of thought of, because I know there's one thing in my mind. If there's one thing you'd like to see Danny Ainge or Brad Stevens or something you want to see done differently, okay, that the Celtics aren't doing enough of, right, what would it be? Because I know what mine is. This is some research I did lately. Danny Ainge has had 30 draft picks since 2003. He has drafted 1 European. 1. It's Semi Urden with the last pick in 2007, I believe. Did
you happen to see the tweet we got on that today?
No, I didn't. This is something I tweeted out.
So, yeah, I was asking for Twitter questions. This was the one I highlighted.
Really?
From a guy named Chris O'Brien. Why hasn't Ainge drafted more Euro players? Only Semi Urden in 2008.
Honestly, I wonder if you saw my tweet from a few weeks ago. I'm not saying you did, but
maybe.
It's possible. So I don't get it. Why do we have to use these second-round picks on like 4-year college players with the ceilings 2 feet off the ground? Like, I think that's every other team, right, finds a gem in the second round or late first that is like, if you look at contending teams, Draymond Green. Now, he was not a European. He was a 3-year college guy. But that's one guy right there. You have Manu Ginobili as part of the Spurs run, right? You have Hassan Whiteside, who was a 2-year college player with huge upside. We need to either draft Europeans or draft these raw upside picks. We can't just keep taking these second rounders you just can't even, like Colton Iverson. Like, what was his ceiling? Like an 11th man? It didn't even reach that? Okay, there's been so many over the years. Like, what's Marcus Thornton going to be? And maybe Jordan Mickey is someone we can look into, but I just feel like finding a stud in the late first or second round picks, right? You've seen some other guys who kind of fit this bill as well, whether it be like Omar Asik. Just let's take some shots in Europe, and especially if we're going to have 5 second round picks this year. I would love to see Ainge get more creative with his second round picks than what he's been, because it's been. I know everyone will always point to Glenn Davis, but it's been a while since we got legitimate value out of the second round. What do you guys think of that? What do you think of anything else you'd like to see Ainge do? Topher, what are you thinking?
I haven't thought about it. There's like a lot to to think about with that. European players, I agree that would be a good thing to look into. I don't keep up with Euroball that often.
Don't
So
you think? Don't you think there's no way that only drafting one is like that's why he must have something against them because there's no way you draft one of 30 guys, especially when 14 or 16 of those picks are second round picks. Like Ainge must have an anti-European slant. Like he must. No, I mean, what do you think? He's got to have something.
It's possible. I haven't really I haven't thought about it, but I mean, it seems odd, especially because last year, this past draft, the first 10 picks, how many were foreign? It was like a huge, like one of the biggest numbers in the top 10 that were foreign players.
The guy from Draft Express says he thinks 10 to 13 players get picked in the first round from Europe this year. Love to see the Celtics get in on that if it's the right pick.
And it's becoming a much bigger thing to do in the draft because I mean, especially as Euroball and basketball internationally is growing, I think maybe there would be something I'd be interested in seeing. I'm not sure. I mean, since we have so many picks, we could find so much talent internationally outside of the NCAA and college basketball here in the U.S. And I think that we might find a gem somewhere in the second round, maybe late first. And so, I mean, for me, having just been sprung on that question, I'm not sure.
Right.
I think that'd probably be the highlight for me.
Mark?
I got something. Similar thought process, but totally different. I wish Brad Stevens would try more, like, out there kind of stuff. Like, yeah, winning this year is good. We're all happy about it. But like I mentioned earlier, nothing needs to happen this year. This team can win 48 games. They can win 42 games. They could even win 38 games, and it's not going to make a big difference in the long run. And I kind of like, in one respect, that he's shortening the rotations, and maybe they're figuring stuff out. But this has to do with playing the young guys or just trying unusual lineups. Like, he keeps talking about going small. I want him, like tonight, all of a sudden, out of the blue, starting lineup, like Isaiah, Avery, Marcus at the small forward, Crowder at the power forward, and Jerebko at center, and run him out there for the first 10 minutes of the game and see what happens. I want them, earlier in the year he mentioned that because they had so much depth, they might just randomly rest guys. I want him to do that, make people think he's Popovich. Be like, you know what? We're not playing Isaiah tonight. He needs a breather, and R.J. Hunter's playing 30 minutes, and Terry Rozier starting, or something like that. Or like, you know what? I'm resting Olynyk and Sullinger tonight, and Jordan Mickey's getting the start. And just experiment with stuff, because this whole year, it's just one big experiment, and nothing can go wrong. And I wish they'd just try more things.
I love it. I love that. Nolan, what do you think?
See, I think, where both of you guys are kind of coming from is, you want the Celtics to take some more risks.
Yes.
Like European players, as good as some of them are, like Ginobili, Porzingis, if you hit big, but a lot of them miss. So you're taking a big risk.
But you're not taking a big risk when the alternative is Colton Iverson. You know what I mean? Like, number 4 pick, that's a big risk.
Or this year when they have 8 second-round draft picks or whatever. Like, take the weirdest guys you can think of and see what happens.
Take the 7'7" guy from Africa who weighs like, I'm in. But I know what you're saying with high picks, but I don't think second-rounders are a lot of risk.
Then, we might be end up, if Ainge took some, 7-footer who, from Africa who breaks his knee the next year because he's too tall for his own body, then we're ripping him for that. Stevens and Ainge don't strike me as big risk takers.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that they will, and I think that actually they have to. I think you're right. They need to make some sort of deal where maybe it doesn't look like a whole lot of sense on paper. Maybe it looks like we're getting way too much, but you gotta get lucky. You really do in this rebuilding thing. That's a huge thing. You need to strike gold sometimes with guys that don't look like it. So
I agree with what you're saying about the risk. I think taking risk with these instead of taking these low ceiling second rounders. I hate low ceiling second rounders. Like I can't stand taking a guy who didn't do. He's like he doesn't have a lot of. If you don't have a lot of athletic ability and you didn't dominate college, so you're like an average athlete who didn't dominate college, you're never going to be successful in the NBA. Like Colton Iverson never had a shot ever. And they've drafted so many other guys like that. I had the list the other day. I wish I had them to pepper with you guys with names, and you'd be like, oh, I kind of remember that guy. Justin Hunter. Oh, yeah, that guy. That was a guy we drafted. There's a long list of second-rounders where it wasn't even like like Jordan Mickey, I like the Jordan Mickey pick because he's a freak athlete, right? He's a ton of block shots, crazy wingspan. He reminds me of the same type of pick as what Hassan Whiteside would have been a few years ago when he got drafted in the second round. He had some issues, bounced back in, but getting one of these guys in the second round, and it could be an American, it could be a European, but every great team has a diamond in the rough. Draymond Green being one of them, Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker with the Spurs. Like if you're going to have big-time success, you have a diamond in the rough. And I just would love to see the Celtics take more risks with that.
Well, they're going to have plenty of opportunities.
They have a lot of ammo. A lot of ammo. I had thought of something during that little run, but I kind of forgot. Do you guys think there's a lot of guys kind of chilling on the end of the bench right now? They've been recent first-round picks, right? James Young, 17th last year. Terry Rozier, whatever he was this year, 17th. Young was 19th. R.J. Hunter, 28th. Jordan Mickey, the highest-paid second-rounder of all time. All sitting on the bench. Not playing, not helping the Celtics, slowly losing value from what they once were as a first-round pick. Do you think Ainge missed the boat in some ways, maybe miscalculated, and kind of some of these assets are kind of sitting in asset purgatory where they're not helping the Celtics, they're not helping the Celtics get better via trade? Do you think maybe the depth thing might have gone a little too far? Because I'm at least thinking about that. Mark, what do you think? Like, are you comfortable with how these guys are being used in year one and year two?
I mean, I'm okay with it, but yeah, I definitely wish they had less depth right now. I wish there were more injuries so we could see what happens. I wouldn't mind seeing Isaiah sprain an ankle and be out for 3 games. Or, yeah, Olynyk and Sullinger both, like, banging heads and both being out for a week. And just because the new guys, like, who knows how good they are. And, yeah, they're all young, but eventually that's going to start turning over. And like you said, they don't have any value now because nobody knows if they're good or not. But I'm willing to wait it out for this season. Like, I don't want them to have the same type of team next year that just has so much depth, because then it's going to be too late. And that was part of my thing, where that whole list of guys, they could re-sign none of them and just plug in guys who are currently behind them right now and still searching for a star or two, and it might work out just as well. So I wish they could figure out a way to fit them in, but I'm willing to bear with it through this season.
Something's got to happen, right? I mean, they have 5 first-round picks in the last 2 years if you count Jordan Mickey. 4 of them don't play at all. They have 8 picks in this draft. Yeah. They say, okay, they pick 2 Europeans. They sell 2 of their second-round picks. That's 4 more guys added to the 4 guys who don't play right now, with a bunch of other guys already signed for next year, including that'd be 3 first-round picks. Like, a major trade kind of needs to happen, or they're just going to be throwing assets out the window because there's just no room for them. So, like, there is some pressure on Danny Ainge to make something happen before a lot of these assets he accumulated and did a great job accumulating start going up in smoke. I mean, Nolan, any response to that? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, that's their biggest problem right now. They need to make a move at the deadline, get rid of some of these picks, whether it's some of their second rounders or what. But I'm not sure how they're going to do it. But Danny, I'm hoping he figures it out. The other thing, I'm a little disappointed. I'm pretty sure Mark just guaranteed Isaiah Thomas is going to sprain his ankle. But having Brad Stevens, he's not going to lose games on purpose. So we figured that out at this point. And I don't think he's going to start guys like James Young and R.J. Hunter over, say, Evan Turner if they're not playing better than Turner at practice.
No, you're right.
And
that's what I tell Ainge. Ainge at some point needs to take it into his own hands and be like, listen, we built this team, and we're going to pull, I don't know if you guys seen Moneyball, when Art keeps playing, who's the first-round pick? Maybe it's Carlos Pena at first base. And he just traded him. He's like, here's Scott Hatterberg. He's your new first baseman. So maybe at some point, because you're right, Ainge is like a competitor. He wants to win. I mean, Stevens, and that's his job. But maybe at some point, Ainge needs to be like, okay, Evan Turner, we're not going to re-sign Evan Turner. It's time for R.J. Hunter to play. Evan Turner, you're going to go to Cleveland or San Antonio, or, I mean, those teams are great, but maybe it's a mid-level team. Miami, who needs some bench help. I don't know. Topher, you haven't answered yet on any of this.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you guys are saying. I want to see what we have with these guys, especially this year's draft picks. So Mickey, Hunter, and Rozier. I think that they will thrive, and they just need the time in the NBA. I mean, Mickey we saw dominate in the D League, and that's not the experience that you need. I mean, it's great to get that, and you're still playing and stuff, but it doesn't compare to the NBA, and so he's not. I don't know if he's growing as he dominates down there. And so you've got Hunter, who I don't think has been on the D League in a while. I think he's been sitting on the bench in Boston, and I don't know if he's growing from that either. So I would rather see them actually hit the floor. And I don't want an injury to be the catalyst for it, but I would love to see Stevens walk in and say, we're starting all our rookies today. Like maybe we'll forfeit this game, but we're just gonna let Rozier start.
Like tonight, perfect night. They're playing. It would be so Popovich, and everybody would love it. Like, we got Denver at home. We're just gonna run out all our bottom 8 guys and see what happens.
Yeah, and I think that would be great for them because they get against some great players. I mean, Danilo Gallinari is a nasty player, and I think it'd be a good experience for them to get out there and play in the Garden, on the floor, get quality minutes, and if it goes downhill quick, you still have the guys that you can throw in if you want to. But
whatever, take a loss. It's one game. Who cares?
Yeah, I'm big. Oh, sorry, you go, Nolan.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're not quite good enough to where we can just bench Isaiah Thomas and expect him to
No, I hear you. I just think at some point, James Young, obviously, he's the year 2. Maybe James Young is just a guy who's never going to get it. But we have never seen him play consistent NBA minutes. And we're coming up on year 2 of his contract. We already picked up, $2.5 million from maybe to chill on the bench next year. And there's a chance we're already picking up or declining his 4th-year option at October 31st next year without ever seeing if the guy can actually play. I mean, he sent him to the NBDL and he averages 27 a game. I'm not saying that's something that's like, he does that, he can succeed in the NBA. But if he's dominating versus those guys and you're not playing him in the NBA, it's like at some point you've got to see what happens. There's less urgency with the first-year guys, but still, once they're competing with other rookies next year, it's like almost like some of these rookies are just going to fall off the face of the earth. And if that's going to happen, I'd love to see them start trading some of these picks. And I will say Ainge tried to do that for Justice Winslow, and it failed. But maybe next year you need multiple plans and multiple directions. I've said one thing I'd be interested in, and it's not something you can just lock in, I know, but if you pick 2nd, right, and you end up with 2nd, 17th, and 22nd in the first round, I would take 17, 22, the 31, and a future first, and just be like, can I get into the top 10 with this? Find a team who isn't in love at 8 or 9, find your guy, and consolidate some of those assets for higher upside guys. Because you can't just roll with depth forever. You can't do it, especially as those guys lose value sitting on the end of your bench. It's nice in theory, but you can't roll depth forever or else you stagnate at some positions. And I hope, Ainge and Stevens are very smart. They're smarter than me, but I hope they at least are aware of that and say, okay, what are some ways we can take these 4 assets, these 4 quarters, and get $1 out of them? That's something I'd like to see them do. Yeah. Anyone else have anything else they want to talk about?
Sure, I got one other thing. So I spend an inordinate amount of time on NBA Twitter, and I kind of wonder how Twitter would survive without the NBA. I feel like the whole thing would just go out of business. Almost like that's the priority for it.
Rap battles, dude. We got rap battles.
Oh yeah, right. But so a lot of the teams, they talk trash to each other. They'll send emojis. Not that I'm in favor of that, but they're funny. A lot of teams' Twitter accounts are funny, and the Celtics one never is. It's so boring. It'll be like, James Young was sent down to the main red clause of the NBDL today, and that's all it says. Except, I'm gonna try to pull this thing up on my phone. So, I don't know if you can see this. They sent this thing, it's not showing up, but about Kelly Olynyk.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to be a three-point shooter, and they put this funny little stick figure picture, and I just like that. It's a step forward for Celtics Twitter, and hopefully there's more entertaining things to come.
See, that's interesting. I have noticed that. The Celtics are a very conservative social media team, unlike the Trailblazers and the Kings and the Hawks. The Hawks have an electric Twitter. So
the Hawks like trash talk. Mid-game they're tweeting at their other teams.
Yeah, they did that Tinder night thing.
Right.
The Hawks are fun.
I mean, the Celtics haven't even changed their logo in 75 years or whatever.
Yeah.
They're ultra conservative.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, see, I like it. I'm just looking at that Olynyk thing now. Cool. Yeah, I agree with that. I'd like to see more. I gotta imagine that stems from the top. Someone's like, no, we want conservative Twitter, or else they would have already jumped on board. maybe they feel like they don't need it. I mean, they still have the most followers of any NBA team. 1.8 mil. I mean,
Yeah.
what are the Lakers at? The Lakers got to be.
The Lakers would probably be the closest in terms of competition.
I mean, it's kind of crazy. Like, our Celtics Life account has more followers than, like, some of the less popular NBA teams. And then,
Right, so the Lakers have 4 mil, but the Knicks are less. I think I remember the Celtics were like the first to a million. Now the Lakers have 4 million. That reeks of some fishiness there.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe that's it. Maybe that's why they're trying new stuff. They're falling back, and they got to step up their Twitter game.
It could be that. I wouldn't discount it. Anyone else? Anyone else want to talk about something? Got a weird prediction or anything? Anyone got thoughts on LeBron? I mean, the coach killer. I feel like it's at least.
There's a guy in the NBA that I think will just fit perfectly with the Celtics, and I think that's Marc Gasol. If we could somehow swing a deal for him, I tried the NBA trade machine thing, and if we can get David Lee and some first rounders, just David Lee just to match the salary, and a guy like Olynyk and Sullinger, because that's their biggest problem, front court depth. So maybe they don't want to get rid of Gasol, but I know their coach recently said that Gasol's wearing down because they don't have enough depth. So just a thought.
He'd be a great fit. They might be a year too early. I mean, they're still the 5 seed, but maybe they see the writing on the wall. I mean, clearly they're not a championship contender. So at some point, you got him and Randolph and Tony Allen, Conley, all upper 20s to lower 30s. So they're gonna have to make moves eventually. So he's not a guy who I'm looking at like, oh, that guy will never be on the market. He should be on the market eventually. I don't know if he'll be in the next month, but then again, they get John Hollinger, right? He likes to make some weird moves or some aggressive moves. So it's definitely not the craziest. There's a better shot they can land him than DeMarcus Cousins, I would say for sure. I think he's one of the more untradeable guys in the league, at least until he demands a trade. Like, say he has 1 year left on his contract. It's like, I'm not re-signing here. Then maybe he gets traded. Not with 2.5 years left with them half a game out of the 8th seed. So I like Gasol. That'd be really, really fun.
Yeah, I wanted him last summer bad when he was a free agent. That was the number one guy. I wish they'd gone all in on him right from the start, and maybe they would have had a chance. But one thing on LeBron, man, his quote, I don't have it in front of me today, he's like, it's not my fault I have a high basketball IQ and I want to tell people stuff. Like, what are you doing? You're trying to defend yourself against being a coach killer, so then you say how smart you are? Like, why does he always say the dumb, egotistical thing in that sense? I wish he had a PR guy that told him everything to say all the time. I'd just get so much less frustrated with him all the time.
And the only guy I can compare to LeBron in that way is A-Rod. They just don't know how to be people. They don't know how to be normal people.
Right, exactly.
And I think they're both similar because they both, by the age of 16, were considered the hottest prospects of all time in their sport, and they both reached it. So it's hard for them not to think they're always right, because they're some of the only guys in history where it was that guy right there is going to be the best that ever played, and then okay, well, LeBron's only the 5th best that ever played. It's tough. You're right. It's he doesn't know how to act like a person because he hasn't been one since he was 15 and got his free Hummer or whatever for his future earnings. So it's tough. I'm a LeBron defender in some ways because he catches shit for stuff he shouldn't catch for, but he just says things and you're just like, dude, shut up. You don't know how to act. And he did it. You're right. That's another one. Or taking his stupid Instagram pictures or some of the stuff he does. And he absolutely got Blatt fired. It's just own it. I'd rather LeBron own it. I got him fired. He's not a good coach. We're in the timeout and I'm drawing up the plays because he gets scared. I'd be like, okay, LeBron, that's valid. That's a valid reason to fire a coach. But I hope he goes full. I hope he gets named the GM and the head coach this summer and goes full, heel, and then goes to the finals anyways. That'd be cool. If LeBron was named the GM and the coach of the Cavaliers and then went to the finals, that'd be badass. He already is that, so just take ownership of it. Make history. You're never going to get 6 titles, so be the first ever GM, coach, player to go out and at least make a run at a championship. That'd be cool. That'd be my...
I like it. I'm willing to bet there's never been a GM player before.
No, I think it's a safe bet, yeah.
LeBron's probably the closest right now.
Yeah.
No, because he isn't. He just doesn't have the title. Get the title. Make more money. Make all the money. Go to the finals. And then I think people, even LeBron haters, would be like, all right, that's kind of cool. Yeah. All right, so we're at an hour. I feel like that's always a good time to wrap it up. Game starts in 25 minutes or so. So Mark, Nolan, Topher, thanks a lot, guys, for coming on. It's always a good time. And until the next episode, see you guys later.